I hear many people saying that when we play as Zack in FF7 Rebirth, we're in a timeline where Zack survives. However, I'm here to tell you that isn't completely true. Rebirth contains many red herrings, but if you look deeply enough, the clues left by the writers shed a different light on the entire story. So, let's return to Zack and this supposedly alternative timeline. At the beginning of Rebirth, we see Zack carrying a Mako poison cloud to Midgar. Our first clue that something is off is the white angel feather falling from the sky. Some might think this doesn't mean anything, or it's just paying homage to Crisis Core. But no, this white angel feather signifies Aerith. How do I know this? Well, like I said before, Rebirth contains a lot of red herrings, but don't get me wrong. The principle of Chekhov's gun still applies here in the story of Remake and Rebirth. But before we go any further, let's first define what a red herring and Chekhov's gun are. A red herring in literature is a literary device that leads readers or audiences toward a false conclusion. Chekhov's gun is a narrative principle that states that every element in a story must be necessary, and irrelevant elements should be removed. Now let's go back to the white feather falling from the sky in the beginning of Rebirth. We see a similar scene towards the end of the game when Cloud and Aerith are on a date in the alternative world. We see black feathers falling in a similar fashion, just like the white feather in the beginning of the game. We obviously know this is Sephiroth because of the black feathers. Anyways, we know that Aerith and Sephiroth parallel each other strongly, especially in this remake series. For example, Aerith controls the white whispers and Sephiroth controls the black whispers. Aerith has the ability to invade Cloud's conscious dreams and the ability to bring him to another world or timeline, and vice versa for Sephiroth. So yeah, Aerith and Sephiroth are literally the light and darkness of the entire Final Fantasy VII lore. So one can only conclude, since the white feather parallels the black feathers, that this white feather signifies Aerith. So what does this mean? It could mean two things. Aerith has some kind of control of this world, or Aerith is overseeing this world. I know some people might think this white feather might be just an Easter egg for Angel, but I strongly doubt that, because 1. The story of Remake and Rebirth is written in sort of a symmetric style, and what I mean by this is that we will see one scene in Rebirth, for example, the white feather falling with no dialogue or no clue to what's really happening, mirrors the black feathers falling in the alternate world, but this time there's dialogue to inform the player what's actually happening. And there are a lot of scenes in Remake and Rebirth that do this a lot. Now, after putting all that together, your antenna should be going up right now that something in Zack's timeline or world is off. Now, let's go over the next biggest clue that this Zack timeline or world is not what we're led to believe it to be. The next biggest red flag is that the events that happened in Remake's timeline leading up to Rebirth's seem to have happened to Zack's alternative Midgar exactly, except that Avalanche lost and most of them died. This is a major issue because if this were a true timeline where Zack survived, none of these events should have happened yet, but they did. We all know in the original timeline, after Zack died, Cloud took the Buster Sword, headed towards Midgar, met with Tifa and Avalanche, and blew up Reactor 1. But when Zack arrives in Midgar, these events already happened. Strange. Some of you might think, well, maybe in this timeline, the events of Avalanche might have happened sooner. But that's impossible because Cloud is with Zack. And you might say, well, maybe in Zack's timeline, all the events with Avalanche happened without Cloud. And again, that is impossible. The biggest clue to suggest that all the events that happened in Remake's timeline happened in Zack's timeline, and yes, Cloud was there with Avalanche, is these two scenes here. Listen carefully to what this Shinra trooper says.
We still have one suspect unaccounted for. Ex-soldier, armed with a Buster Sword. Highly dangerous.
I repeat, the fugitive is an ex-soldier, armed with a Buster Sword.
The trooper says there's one suspect that they are looking for, and he's an ex-soldier with a Buster Sword. Remember, and these troopers are looking for the Avalanche members who were on the Midway Highway. Now listen to this next scene carefully. Zack was never in Avalanche, and Zack wasn't even in Midgar when the events of the end of Remake happened. And to reinforce that these troopers are looking for Cloud, in the beginning of the game, we see sort of a recap of what happened at the end of Remake. This can be a red herring. If you are not paying attention, you might think this is just an opening recap to get the player up to speed on what happened at the end of Remake, but it also serves another purpose. Look at this scene. We see Shinra troops watching the surveillance videos of Avalanche escaping the Shinra building. And it's a blink and you'll miss it moment. Did you catch the Shinra trooper in red? It's the same one who said this.
We still have one suspect accounted for. Ex-soldier, armed with a buster sword. Highly dangerous.
I repeat, the fugitive is an ex-soldier, armed with a buster sword.
So this is more than a recap. This is canon to the beginning story of Rebirth. With all that said, I'm 100% sure that the Shinra soldiers are looking for Cloud and not Zack. And if you are still not convinced, listen to this scene carefully.
Of course, this is only the most recent in a series of crises. Multiple reactor bombings, followed by the fall of the Sector 7 plate, culminating in this unprecedented destruction, caused by a massive tornado which swept through Sectors 0, 1, and 2. After a briefing with Shinra investigators, Mayor Domino released a statement, declaring the tornado to be, quote, weather warfare, perpetrated by the infamous insurgent group known as Avalanche. The administration also suspects the involvement of Wutai, and has begun investigations into the matter.
Now listen to this scene.
Of course, this is only the most recent in a series of crises. Multiple reactor bombings, followed by the fall of the Sector 7 plate, culminating in this unprecedented destruction, caused by a massive tornado which swept through Sectors 0, 1, and 2. After a briefing with Shinra investigators, Mayor Domino released a statement, declaring the tornado to be, quote, weather warfare, perpetrated by the infamous insurgent group known as Avalanche. The administration also suspects the involvement of Wutai, and has begun investigations into the matter.
All of these scenes are 100% proof that Zack's Midgar is kind of a replica of Remake's Midgar, except most of Avalanche is dead, Cloud is missing, and the planet is dying. Okay, but for now, let's focus on Biggs and the scene with Zack in Sector 5. This will give us the biggest clue as to what's really happening in this alternative world Zack is in.
So there I am, on the ground, bleeding out, watching everything go dark. Thinking, this is it. This is how it ends. Only, it isn't. Suddenly, the wind picks up out of nowhere. It tugs at me so hard, it feels like it's tearing my soul right out of my body. Next thing I know, I'm back in the orphanage. But nobody can tell me who found me or how I got there. It's a miracle.
Sounds like what happened to me. Whole freaking army unloading on my position. I feel every single bullet. One minute, I'm outnumbered. And the next, I'm alone.
None of it makes any sense. I somehow managed to beat the odds and wake up here, alone. Why in the hell did fate pick me?
Did you catch that? Biggs is literally explaining his death. He says that everything goes dark, then the wind picks up out of nowhere, tugging at him so hard it feels like it's tearing his soul out of his body. Then Biggs wonders why fate picked him. Now, Zack, on the other hand, accounts for how he ended up in this world, which is strangely different from Biggs' account. While Biggs literally explained how he dies, Zack explains how he was saved. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the biggest red herring in the entire game. I believe Zack is dead. The strongest evidence to support this theory is a random NPC in Cosmo Canyon. Listen to this dialogue carefully.
Things of the planet be upon you.
Now, would anyone else like to share their story with the group?
So, my parents are no longer with us. Here, that is. But I believe they're still out there, on another plane. I've been reading a bunch of theories about this alternate world in the hope of going there someday. And over the course of my studies, I stumbled across a fascinating theory. It addressed the issue of what the lifestream is, arguing that spiritual energy is actually a manifestation of our knowledge and memories. Like I said, it's a fascinating theory, but it's incomplete. What about our hopes and dreams? We remember those, don't we? So what if spiritual energy doesn't distinguish between our real, lived memories and the unrealized desires buried deep in our hearts? What if coming into contact with that energy allowed us to peer through the looking glass, so to speak? It's just an idea, but I hope to find the truth someday.
Well, isn't that splendid?
Blessings of the planet be upon you.
And may the bounty of the planet's knowledge be with you forevermore. Now then, would anyone else like to share their story?
What's extremely interesting about this dialogue is its placement in the story. Right after this is Red's trial, and right after that is the Guy segment, but there's an interlude in between where we go back to Zack's world. Zack confirms the wind he felt was Aerith.
It's me. The wind, that was you, wasn't it? Hello in there.
Zack is thanking Aerith because he thinks she saved his life, but in reality, that's not the case. Again, when Biggs described this wind, that's when he described his soul being pulled from his body, but Zack felt the wind, and he sees the bullet being moved. Now, for this to make sense, we have to go back to the NPC in Cosmo Canyon again and analyze her last few sentences about unrealized desires. So, what happened here is that Zack's unrealized desires buried deep in his heart came into contact with his spirit energy, and remember, the spirit energy cannot distinguish real memories with unrealized desire, so when the spirit energy made contact with Zack's unrealized desire, which is to defeat the Shinra troops, so he can see Aerith again in Midgar, and that's why we see Zack defeating the hordes of Shinra troops. To support this theory that Zack is in fact dead, let's go back to the scene where Zack touches Aerith's hand. We cut to the scene where Aerith has her hand in the lifestream and she can feel Zack's touch.
What?
I don't know how to spell it out for you, but the game is literally telling us that Zack is dead, and guess what? There's more evidence supporting this theory that Zack is indeed dead throughout Remake and Rebirth. But for now, let's focus on Aerith. We know Aerith is sensitive to the lifestream due to her being a Cetra. In Remake, and the original Final Fantasy VII, when Aerith was a child and living with her adopted mom Elmira, Aerith tells Elmira that her husband has died and went back to the lifestream.
Mommy, don't be sad.
That's what she said to me one day, out of the blue. So I asked her, what's wrong?
A man you really, really loved just died. His heart came a long way to say goodbye. But he couldn't stay because he had to return to the planet.
In Crisis Core, it is heavily implied that Aerith knows Zack has passed on. Also, Aerith cross paths. If you analyze this scene carefully, Aerith reacts to Zack's presence or spirit energy per se.
Almost there, Cloud. We're almost there.
There's also a scene at the end of Rebirth when Aerith makes contact with Red, who is also sensitive to the lifestream. Red reacts when Aerith comes close to him.
Aerith?
Original 4 scenes is to convey when a characters like Aerith and Red who are sensitive to the lifestream come into contact with spirit energy, they either react or flat out knows who that spirit energy belongs to. Now the ending of Rebirth and Remake kind of mirror each other. For example, the end of Remake, when we have a character who has passed and becomes spirit energy like Zack, Aerith reacts to his presence. In Rebirth, we have Aerith who has passed, became spirit energy, and Red, who is sensitive to the lifestream, reacts. So what's this alternative Midgar? Well, let Sephiroth explain this one.
Behold, the true nature of reality. When the boundaries of fate are breached, new worlds are born. The planet encompasses a multitude of worlds, ever unfolding.
So what Sephiroth is basically saying is at the end of Remake, when fate was defeated, a chain reaction happened where the planet created infinite worlds. Now when Sephiroth says the planet, he's basically referring to the lifestream. So we can conclude the Midgar Zack is in the lifestream, but that's not 100% what's going on. And to put the last puzzle piece together, we need to go back to the ending of Remake.
Hey Cloud, you see that?
I don't think it's just me, but it looked like Midgar seems to just pop into existence. To conclude part 1 of this video about Zack, I believe the Zack we play as in Rebirth is nothing more than his spirit energy melded with his unrealized desire that traveled to a replica Midgar created by the Whispers and the Lifestream. In part 2 of this video series, I would like focus on Midgar, Sephiroth, and Aerith. Thanks for watching.